Welcome to Surrendering to the Signs. I'm your host, Laura Gates. I'm here today with Geri Esposito, who was my manager at Citibank in New York City in 1990. Although she was my boss for only about a year, Geri and I had a very significant relationship, and I learned a lot from her and had some incredible experiences. And this episode is really about when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
All my life I was looking for a sign. Wasn't sure where to find a peace of mind. Sometimes you can see things when it ain't time. Well, for you I'll be putting it all aside.
So thank you for joining us, Geri. And it's great to have you on the podcast. You want to start just by telling us a little bit about yourself and your journey before you and I met, and then we can talk a little bit about our journey?
Okay. I would say my journey in my life began in the late 1960s when I walked into the Integral Yoga Institute on 14th Street and took a yoga class. Didn't know I was going to take a yoga class, but I just did it. And at the end of the class, there were tears in my eyes because I felt like this is where I belonged. And this is what I've been looking for all my life. I thought it was, only 19, but I thought it was a big deal all my life. And like they say, the rest is history. A week later, I signed up for a 10-day silent retreat. I don't even know why. Like you say, when you're ready, the teacher comes. And I went on this 10-day retreat. And ever since then, I've been studying, practicing yoga.
So this was the late 60s. This is not when you had a yoga studio on every corner and people were walking on the subways with their yoga mats.
True. And it was very different yoga than the yoga that is taught today. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the yoga that's taught today because I've continued to practice. It was more of a searching for a guide or some kind of spiritual awakening. And it happened in the first yoga class. It always started with chanting. Then we did asanas, and then we did breathing and meditation. And that's the way the classes were taught then.
And what led you to that class? How did you find out about that class in the first place?
I just was walking down the street and I saw this sign that said Integral Yoga Institute. Meanwhile, at the time, I was bar hopping and drinking and just, partying, I would say, what they call it now. And I don't know, I went in there and took a class. So I think, the energy of the Institute and Swami Satchidananda drew me in.
Wow. So you weren't looking for a spiritual teacher. You were out having fun.
I was not looking, no. Out and about in the village in New York. And I remember telling my girlfriend at that time, who we used to go bar hopping, that I was going on a retreat. She couldn't fathom it. She thought I was out of my mind.
Wow. Fascinating.
Yeah. Needless to say, that friendship didn't last.
So I feel like similarly, you and I met and you invited me on a retreat. So I had been traveling. I had been working at Citibank from 1984 to 1989, late 88. And I was working on Wall Street, working in the branch system. I ended up going on this crazy trip, leaving my job, leaving my life, traveling all over South America. And one of the last parts of that year of travel was on a train from Machu Picchu to Cusco. I got very, very, very ill and really thought I was dying. Like I really thought I was dying. And a woman came up to me on the train and offered to do some healing work on me. And I really didn't even understand what she was saying, but I was suffering and I just said, sure. And she kind of waved her hands around and told me to look her in the eyes. And next thing you know, I'm completely sound asleep. And I think I woke up several hours later and I was completely better. And I have no understanding of what had just occurred to me. Not to mention, I had just come from one of the spiritual vortexes of the world in Machu Picchu, right? I had laid on a rock and this bolt of energy went through me. And that's after that when I got sick. And so you could walk around, you could lay on top of, and someone had said, oh, that was the fight warrior rock that the warriors would lay on to get energy to go into battle. So who knows what the hell happened to me. Anyway, long story longer, I come back to New York City and am looking for a job. And I believe that I literally, in my own mind's recollection, bumped into someone on the street who said, Laura Gates, you should come back to Citibank. And I was like, no, I don't think I want to get back into banking. And they're like, no, I think there's a job that's perfect for you. And that's when I was sent to interview with you and Lorraine. And I took the job with you, which I think was the first ever computer-based training job that Citibank was offering. It was like a whole new thing of offering training people on the computer systems as opposed to like live training. And shortly into that, you had said to me like something like, I'm a spiritual minister and a reflexologist. And I had no idea, like I had no context for any of this stuff. Like I wasn't reading books about this. I wasn't studying about this. People weren't talking about this. This was 1990, right? Doesn't sound very long ago, but in terms of these things being common and in the vernacular, it was not so well known. And you invited me on a retreat at a place called Pumpkin Hollow Farm outside of New York City. And I had nice memories of this retreat. And I remember one of the women was Dolores Krieger, the founder of Healing Touch, which is sort of the predecessor to Reiki, or it's a kind of a Reiki, right? Kind of a hands-on.
Dolores Krieger was a professor at NYU nursing program, and I went to a class there, and she introduced Doricans, and that's how I got into therapeutic touch.
And then you invited me on this retreat, which I think was a meditation retreat. I think it was to learn therapeutic touch, but also to learn meditation. And all I could remember was Dolores Krieger and therapeutic touch. And then a couple of years ago, I was throwing out some old journals and I came across a journal where I mentioned going on that retreat with you. And in it, I had written Dolores Krieger and Dora Kuntz. And I was like, who the heck is Dora Kuntz? And I looked her up and I was like, oh my God, I was at the feet of a master who'd been meditating since like birth, who was from the Dutch West Indies or something like that. I mean, what studied with, was a peer to Krishnamurti and like just an incredible spiritual healer. And
she within the Theosophical Society, and that's what Pumpkin Hollow Farm was, part of the Theosophical Society.
And I didn't know any of this. And the point of saying what a newbie I was to all of this, I wasn't seeking something. I was seeking myself, right? I was trying to find who am I? Why am I here? What am I here to do? That was part of this journey to South America, was like, I'm not happy working in banking on Wall Street. There's something else, but I don't know what that is. And I came back and I still didn't know what it was. But this trip was foundational for me in ways that I didn't even understand at the time, because I didn't really know what I was doing at the time. And that idea, like you walked into a yoga class and then you signed up for a retreat, it's not like you had a plan. And I think that's what I want to convey to people, is that it's not like we need a plan. We just need a desire.
We need to be open to open to the messages that are there every day, but we, as a society, we don't have time. Even back then, we didn't have time to do it. But somehow you have to just open your being and your heart to receive. And that's why I went into the yoga class. That's why I asked you to come. That's why you said yes. I mean, you didn't know what you were doing. You just said yes. And that's what I did when I went in the yoga studio. Just, yeah, I'm doing it.
And what I love is we feel like, oh, I'm at the workplace. I can't, this isn't appropriate for work, or like it's like you're like, hey, you want to go do this thing? And I was like, hey, yeah, let's go do this thing. And I just so appreciated that it wasn't like, well, I'm her boss, I shouldn't invite her to this meditation retreat,
Well, also, I didn't ask anybody else. I never asked anybody else at Citibank to do any of this. So there was something that you had out in the universe that made me ask you.
Right.
Because, I didn't share this with other people at Citibank,
Right.
So, yeah, you were open. You were available. You seemed open and ready. That's the only, I can't remember why I asked you, but that has to be it, because, other people at Citibank knew I did reflexology and I did yoga, but there was they didn't care, it was just not even interesting to them. So.
And I just also want to say, this is the first time I'm seeing you since probably 1991. I think we've had maybe 2 or 3 conversations and a couple Facebook posts, but like, this is not an ongoing friendship. And I feel like people come when they need to come and spark something. And it doesn't mean we're with them connected every day for the next 50 years of our lives, but we may circle back at another point of transition or reinforcement. Like, I feel like finding that information about Dora was a reinforcement on the journey where I needed additional information than I had. I was ready to read her books and study her work in a way that I hadn't when we went on that retreat. It's not like I came home from that retreat, by the way, and started meditating every day. We go in these journeys and we have these openings, but we don't know where that takes us.
You hold this map, I'll hold your hand. Take this love around the world. Don't mind those crows buzzing around your head. Nothing's gonna hurt your girl. I believe we're here for a while, then we die. But I believe this love is stronger than you and
I just think life, if we allow it, it takes us. I never, ask me if I ever thought I'd live in Oregon. No. Ask me if I'd ever live in Texas, take care of my mom. No. Ask me, I could have gone anywhere. I came back to Oregon. So I just follow the signs.
You hold this map, I'll hold your hand. Take this love around the world.
Tell us how you follow those signs. How do you know it's a sign? Like, when you left in 1996 to go to Oregon, what guided you? What led you?
Some personal things. I wanted to be a mother at that time, and I had 2 pregnancies, and neither one of them, details are not important, didn't come to fruition. And I just looked at my life and said, this is not what I want. And so I used to come to Oregon, and Ashland, Oregon had, at that point in my mind, the mountains. I mean, this is going to sound crazy, but they look like breasts. And it was so feminine. It was so feminine compared to New York City, that was like these buildings that were like masculine. And, Jack wasn't, it took me 5 years really to convince Jack to do it. And because he said, what are we going to do there? How are we going to live? And I went to massage school and he went to cooking school. And we came to Oregon with no jobs. Absolutely no jobs. No. Figured out how we were going to make money. And I had such faith then, and just the universe, everything's going to be taken. It was taken care of.
Well, and I don't know if you remember, but at the end of 90, we were in a building, 111 8th Avenue, and the whole city block. And,
Yes.
you would get in an elevator and you'd go down one floor and it would be empty. There were thousands of people sitting at desks and then it would be empty. So this was one of those downturn years, huge amounts of layoffs. And I went to you and I said, will you please give me a package? And you said, oh no, they like you too much. They're not going to give you a package. I ended up leaving New York with no job, no prospects. My sister Janice living in San Francisco saying, hey, my roommate's moving out. A room is moving up if you guys want to come live with me. Same thing. We came, no jobs, no prospects, no nothing, and figured it out because I do believe that. I love what you just said about Ashland. Like, I've talked about this with a couple of other guests as well. There's something about geography. I knew it was time to go to New York, and then I knew it was time to leave New York, and then I knew it was time to be in California, and I went from San Francisco to Marin County, and then I knew it was time to leave California and come back to Central New York. And will I be here forever? I have no idea, but I know this is where I need to be now. Just like you went from Ashland to Texas and you kind of stayed open to what was going to happen from there.
I mean, I went for a visit. I didn't know I was going to come. My mom got sick and I went to visit and saw her in the hospital in the bed, and she looked like this frail old woman. And I said, I didn't even know who this woman was. She brought me into this earth and I need to come back. And I went back to Oregon. I said, Jack, you're not going to believe this. I need to move to Texas. God bless his soul. He was right there with me. He said, okay.
It's a perfect day for the road. The blue sky will take us home. We'll take it easy, we'll take it slow. It's a good day for the road.
And I don't know if you knew this, but in 2021, I came to facilitate a workshop, a client workshop in New York. I was flying back. I stopped at my mom's house on the way back to California. She was sick. I dropped my bags. I canceled the flight. I stayed for 3 months working out of her back bedroom. And I called my husband. I said, we need to sell the house and we need to move back.
There you go. Wow. So, our journey is pretty close, Why did I do it? Because I had people here who said to me, you're crazy. Just go visit, go when she needs you, or, it's like that. You're going to leave your whole life. It was the direction the universe told me to go in. That's the only way I can put it. I didn't even think about it.
So you felt it, just so we can decipher the clues a little bit. For your version of the clues, you felt it in your body, you knew it in your, how do you know?
I always go into my heart chakra, get messages. I can't get it through my brain. I did think I need to come back and be with my mom. It was from the heart. I used to go to this retreat here in Ashland, and there was this one, a lot of people go from the head. I'm not saying it's wrong to go from your head, but I think you have to work with both of them. And she would always be from her head. So when she'd come into the retreat, we'd say to her, just say her name was Sandy. Now we're going to take your brain and put it in a vault right now and lock it up. And this weekend, we want you just to be, and not use your brain. I mean, she think we were crazy, but she finally got it. She was able to get into her body a little bit because she wasn't a physical being. So when I teach yoga classes, I teach them to seniors, I always say, I want you to leave your brain somewhere else for an hour, and we're just going to feel. I mean, they don't even, some of them don't know it, but at least they get an idea that that's possible. But my heart told me I had to do it.
Right.
And when I came home and told Jack, he saw it. And he moved to Ashland for me, and he moved to Texas for me. So that's why when we're leaving Texas, I told him it was his. Now I would go anywhere except New York. I can't put words to why I knew. I just knew I knew,
When I listen to you, what I hear is it's quiet inside. There's not noise in your head about it.
No. I've done yoga all these years. I went to Texas. I knew nobody, no women. And I knew my mother and my cousins who were, were different their lifestyles are different. And then I saw this yoga thing online, and it was by this woman, Phyllis Schwartz. And I thought, she sounds like she could be from New York. I'm going. And then I met, and I was craving for that because I had women's group here. And these women went to yoga class, and I said one time, I'd like to have you over for lunch. I say, I do this art process called soul collage, and I'd like to present it to you. And then if you're interested, I would like to have a group once a month. And that's how I developed it. Yoga always sort of is the catalyst. I want to say one other thing about leaving corporate, okay? I came to Ashland. I had gone to massage school at night. I came to Ashland, and I literally cried every day. I say 9 months. That's just in my head. Because I had left this big responsibility job, came to this little town as a massage therapist, and everybody I met was a massage therapist. There's loads of them here. And I thought, what did I do? How am I ever going to make any money here? And everybody I went to was better than me because I was just starting out. You have this vision, I'm going to be a massage therapist and I'm terrific. Well, I wasn't terrific. I was good, but I hadn't done it for a long time. So I cried a lot. But I'll tell you how I did massage in Ashland. It wasn't working. I went to Medford, which is the town, not a big town, it's 50,000, so something like that. And they have a retirement community, which is corporate. And I went up there and I did a presentation to do massage on site. I rented space there and I did massage on site. And that's how I was able to do it. Not saying that I couldn't have done it at home and built up a practice, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted something that was set, and I did it.
Well, it also sounds like a dismantling of your identity because you were this corporate leader and people respected you and you had a title and you had a business card and wore a suit every day because in those days we had to wear suits and pumps and I think mostly skirts and dresses. I think I got yelled at once for wearing slacks to work, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that unbelievable?
I know how far we've come that we can actually wear jeans and a vest to work nowadays. But it sounds like there was, so what I like about what you're saying on the journey is that it's not like all sunshine and roses, right? Like you studied massage, you had this vision, you went to this town, but you still had to figure it out once you got there. And you had to go through this kind of dark night of the soul of your own journey to come to terms with what your choices that you had made.
Yeah, and what's your identity? Laura, what's your identity? My identity was a bigwig, not a a vice president of City, but it was an identity. And then when I came here, I didn't have an identity. So I had to really, who am I? Who am I? I still ask, who am I and what am I here for and what's my purpose? But again, the universe put me in a space where, I'll just explain that a little bit. I started working at a chiropractor's office, and you'll laugh at this, for $8 an hour doing massage. And, I knew it wouldn't be forever, but I did it. And then one of my patients was this nurse who worked at this retirement community. And I said to her, I really want to work with seniors. And she said, well, let me do some inquiries. And she's the one who spoke to the foundation manager, and he's the one who I did the presentation to. If I didn't take this $8 an hour job,
right,
I might not have. So it's just like, I think if we get out of the way sometimes, and sometimes it's not easy. It's like you're saying, sometimes it's not easy, but I hate this. It's so new agey, but I think we are where we're supposed to be.
When you do make a shift like that, like when I moved to California, I was doing a temp job for a guy who had my job in New York, and that was so painful. But each time I've made a step back in like that beginner mindset, right? Like, okay, I'm starting over. I'm willing to be a beginner. I'm willing to be at the bottom of the rung. It doesn't mean I'm going to always be there. You were at Citibank a long time.
27 years. 27.
Tell us how your corporate career paralleled with your spiritual path.
For a while, my spiritual path faded away a little bit when I was just beginning and, working to get ahead and, make money, I didn't make a lot of money, but then I thought it was a lot of money. And I let go of it for a while. I would say maybe a few years where I didn't do yoga. I didn't think about yoga. I didn't think about meditating or breathing or any of that. And then I don't know what made me come back to it. Maybe I was walking in the village and saw the IYI again, and I started doing yoga again. And I did it in the corporate world because I never really felt like I was part of the corporate world. I always felt like I was an outsider. I wasn't corporate. I could do it when I needed to be, but then when I was in my office, I was Geri.
And that must have been how you and I connected, because I remember I was given an iMac or a Macintosh computer and told, you're the young one, figure this thing out,
Oh, yes. Yes. Well, listen, Lorraine didn't even want to use it. At least I tried. But, yes, we were just so happy to have you. That's the thing I remember. We were so happy to have you that Lorraine and I would say, you were a godsend. You were educated, but you didn't come across as I'm better than you. Some of the interns we had, that's the way they would come across.
See, I didn't know any of this. This is nice to hear this many years later.
Yeah. So, 27 years is a long time. But I grew up, my parents didn't have money. My mother always said, get a job, stay with it, and don't make any waves. Well, that's just not my personality, I mean, not making any waves, but I did stick with it. When I left Citibank and I went cross country and I lived in the ashram in San Francisco, and I got a name from Swami Satchidananda, and I would write my mother these glowing letters and sign it Janani, which was the name that I got from Satchidananda. She thought I was in a cult, and I lost my mind.
Right. Well, that was happening at that time as well, right? And I don't remember any of that part. So obviously you weren't trying to convert me into that, right? I don't remember any of that.
The whole philosophy he had was truth is one, paths so many. And I grew up Catholic, and, it was like our way or the highway, So it just opened up a whole different outlook of what spirituality was.
Well, thank you so much for this conversation.
You're welcome.
And I'm so glad to be reconnected.
Yes, I can just say one thing. When you saw me on Facebook, you said something like, oh, you're still here. And I cracked up laughing because I thought, this should mean maybe that I was dead. I'm still here.
Yes, I did.
And I know, I liked it. I loved it.
Meaning, oh, you're still alive. I can talk to you. That's awesome. Because you had disappeared for a while.
Well, thank you for doing this. This is really a pleasure for me as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Surrendering to the Signs. I hope you found it inspiring. Please like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Also, feel free to hop on over to surrenderingtothesigns.com, where you can download our free e-guide with examples and your own workbook to help you identify your signs. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode and wish you well.